I just watched a video over on Sous Vide Everything where Guga makes a medium rare brisket. Now, the one Guga made was pretty tough, so I wanted to test whether I could make a super tender, fall apart in your mouth brisket that still tasted like a medium rare steak. The results that I found were honestly really shocking and changed the way that I think about brisket. We're gonna get into that in this video, as well as showing you how to make your own medium rare brisket at home. Let's get smoking. The first thing I'm doing is prepping 2 small chunks of brisket with some salt, pepper, and a sprinkling of Sure Shot Sid's gunpowder rub for a bit of extra help with the color of the bark. This brisket isn't going to be on the smoker for very long, so it needs all the help it can get to darken up. And this rub has a bit of charcoal powder in it that can help get the job done. I'm preheating my Oklahoma Joe's offset smoker using my grill gun. For this cook, I'm just running straight wood splits because I ran out of charcoal, but surprisingly, it runs just fine even without the charcoal bed as long as I let the splits burn down for a while and form their own coal bed. After the smoker preheats, the brisket chunks go on the smoker and I run it at around 225 to 250 for a few hours, just until the internal temperature of the brisket comes up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really critical that I pull them off at a low enough temperature because if they go above 140 degrees Fahrenheit internal, they're no longer medium rare. Now, I'm placing the brisket chunks in vac seal bags and sealing them up tight with my vac sealer, giving them a double seal for good measure so they don't leak. And then they go into the sous vide bath at 131 degrees Fahrenheit. This was the temperature that Guga used in his video, so I wanted to use the same temperature. If I sliced into them now, they would be tough as shoe leather, so I'm leaving them in the sous vide bath for 24 hours to slowly cook and hopefully get incredibly tender while still having a medium rare steak-like consistency. And after 24 hours, I'm getting ready to slice into the first brisket chunk. Before we get into slicing, I wanted to thank the sponsor for this video, Established Titles. It's a project based on Scottish custom where if you own land, that makes you a lord or a lady. So if you buy as little as 1 square foot of land from them, you too can be a lord or lady and do some really cool stuff with it, like putting your new title on your plane ticket, credit card, or even your dating profile. A title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a unique plot number showing the exact location of your land. They even plant a tree with every order and work with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. I gave one to my dad for his birthday and he loved it so much that I decided to get one for my brother as well. Matt, I got you a very special present.
Thanks, Steve. Oh, wow, I've heard of these things.
You are now a Scottish lord, Lord Matthew William Gow. Hey Dad, how do you feel that your son is now a Scottish lord as well? You're not the only lord in the family.
He's under the will.
That's all right, there wasn't much there anyway.
Did I mention it makes an amazing last-minute gift for your family or your partner? You can get a couples pack with plots right next to each other. And speaking of that, Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot or within a few minutes of walking. So depending on how many of you want to become lords or ladies, we can build our own little Smoke Trails barbecue kingdom. Now is the time to buy a title pack because Established Titles is now running a great Labor Day sale. Plus, if you use code STBBQ, you'll get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/STBBQ to get your gifts now and help support the channel. All right, let's cut this thing open without trying to get juices everywhere. Whew. Hey. I mean, it feels pretty tender. It kind of feels like a steak. The bark doesn't look great. I mean, it wasn't on the smoker that long. If you really wanted to, you could put it in an ice bath and take the temperature down to 100 degrees Fahrenheit or even lower. You could go all the way to fridge temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit and then smoke it again to get some bark on it, but not going past 120, 130 because you still want to keep the medium rare consistency. It's slicing pretty nice. I mean, it seems tender. It's really pink. Look at that. And it's nice and tender, actually. Gonna do about a 1/4 inch slice. It is slicing really nice. It's slicing like a dream. It's a bit tougher than my normal briskets, but it's floppy. It doesn't look tough. I mean, look at that. That looks pretty good. It looks like a steak. Let's try pulling it apart here. I mean, the fat is not really well rendered, to be honest. It's not extremely tough, but it's definitely not rendered like a regular brisket. I'm just gonna peel that fat cap off. Let's try to pull it apart here. It's pretty tough. You have to pretty much rip it apart like a steak pretty much. So let's give it a taste now. It's got surprisingly good flavor. It tastes like a tough steak, but not bad. It's actually really good. It tastes like a medium rare sirloin steak. Maybe not a ribeye, but a little bit of a tougher sirloin. But if you cut into it with a fork and a knife, it pretty much melts in your mouth and it tastes really good. Especially considering brisket is a lot cheaper than steak. This is probably a good way to make some nice steaks. I'm also surprised how tender it is. I mean, it's not like a regular brisket that kind of crumbles apart in your mouth and falls apart, but it's pretty tender for a steak. I've had a lot tougher steaks in my life than this, and this has a lot of flavor, it has a lot of fat, and it's got a really good texture to it. Now that I've tried it, one thing I'm gonna do to try to improve it is I'm gonna use my sous vide gun to crisp it up a little bit on the outside and maybe render that fat a little bit better. Oh yeah, now it really looks like a steak. That looks pretty nice actually. And I did see the fat kind of crisp up a little bit, and it looked like it rendered a little bit more. So let's take another slice off. That's good, that's really good. With a little bit of direct heat on that fat, it now tastes a lot like a steak. Now, I was almost ready to end the video there, but that brisket was a little bit too tough for my liking. Pretty much the same finding that Guga found in his video. So I wanted to see if taking the brisket another 12 hours, up to 36 hours total in the sous vide bath, would make a difference. So after another 12 hours, I sliced open the second sous vide bag and gave the brisket a nice finishing sear. My sous vide gun did the job really well and actually formed a really nice bark. Then I sliced into it and I immediately noticed that it was more tender and juicy than the first brisket. The juices running out of the brisket told me that something had happened in that extra 12 hours in the sous vide bath to make the brisket a lot better than the last one. And when I tasted it, my hunch was proven correct. It pulled apart much more easily, it was more juicy, it tasted better, and it still retained that delicious medium rare consistency of a perfectly cooked steak. Truly a different but really enjoyable brisket experience. And an experience that really changed the way that I think about brisket. I always thought of brisket as a super tough cut of meat that you had to take up to 190, 200 degrees Fahrenheit before it started to get tender. But with the sous vide, you can actually enjoy a brisket at a medium rare consistency, carve it up, serve it up to your family as steaks. So it really makes brisket such a versatile cut of meat, and it really reinforces that brisket is the king of barbecue. If you guys want to talk all things brisket and barbecue related directly with me, consider joining my Patreon. I'll link it in the description section below. We have an awesome little community there, and you'll not only get access directly to that community, who is full of super smart people who know a lot about barbecue, but directly to me so I can answer your questions in real time. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video, and happy smoking.